Emily Harper worshipped her father, Daniel, a revered pastor in Willow Creek, Ohio, with a devotion that consumed her soul. Margaret, her mother, was the town's beacon of charity, unaware of the darkness brewing in her daughter's heart. Thomas Reed, a charming deacon, threatened Daniel's divine legacy. Emily's love twisted into a deadly obsession. What began as a daughter's unwavering loyalty ended in a chilling act of betrayal that shattered a town and a family forever. Willow Creek, a sleepy town nestled in the rolling hills of Ohio, was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's. At the heart of this close-knit community stood the Harper family, a pillar of virtue and faith. Daniel Harper, a pastor in his early 50s, led Grace Covenant Church with a commanding presence. His sermons, delivered with fiery conviction, filled the pews every Sunday, drawing people from neighboring towns. His piercing blue eyes and warm smile made him a figure of reverence, a man who seemed to embody God's will. His wife, Margaret, a soft-spoken woman with a kind face, ran a local charity that provided meals and clothing to underprivileged children. Their only child, Emily, a slender 19-year-old with her father's striking eyes, was the epitome of a dutiful daughter. She sang in the church choir, organized youth events, and shadowed her father with an intensity that bordered on worship. To the townsfolk, the Harpers were untouchable, a family blessed by divine favor. But beneath the polished exterior, subtle tensions simmered. Emily's devotion to her father went beyond admiration. She hung on his every word, her life revolving around his approval. She kept a small notebook where she jotted down his sermon quotes, memorizing them like scripture. At church events, she hovered near him, her gaze fixed on him, even when others spoke. Neighbors noticed her odd behavior, how she rarely socialized. With peers, how her world seemed to narrow to Daniel's orbit. Some whispered that her attachment was unhealthy, but no one dared confront the Harpers. After all, they were the perfect family. As Emily entered her late teens, her obsession deepened. She began to see herself as her father's protector, a guardian of his legacy. Unbeknownst to anyone, her love was a ticking time bomb waiting for the right spark to ignite. As the years passed, the Harper family's flawless image began to show signs of strain. Margaret's charity work grew increasingly demanding, pulling her away from home. She spent long hours at the community center, leaving Daniel and Emily to manage the church's daily affairs. Rumors circulated about trouble in the Harper marriage, whispers of cold silences and strained smiles during public appearances. Though the couple maintained a united front, their distance was palpable to those who paid attention. Emily, now a young adult, withdrew further from the world. She dropped out of community college, claiming she wanted to focus on church work. Her friends, once a small but lively group, drifted away, unable to penetrate her growing isolation. Her notebook evolved into a journal, its pages filled with fervent writings about her father's divine purpose and her role in preserving it. A new figure disrupted the delicate balance of the Harper household, Thomas Reed, a 28-year-old deacon, who arrived in Willow Creek from a nearby city. Tall, with a disarming smile and a knack for public speaking, Thomas quickly won over the congregation. His modern ideas, youth retreats, social media outreach, breathed new life into Grace Covenant. Daniel took a liking to him, initiative during sermons. But Emily saw Thomas differently. She noticed the way her father deferred to him during meetings. In her journal, she described him as a false prophet, a threat to her father's authority. She began to obsess over Thomas, her writings growing darker. She sketched out vague plans to remove obstacles from Daniel's path, her words laced with a chilling sense of purpose. The stage was set for a collision no one could foresee. Emily's fixation on Thomas took a dangerous turn. Following him, noting his routines in her journal with meticulous detail, she learned his schedule when he arrived at the church, where he parked his car, how long he stayed after meetings. Her surveillance revealed a shocking secret. Thomas was embezzling church funds. He siphoned small amounts from donation accounts, transferring them to a personal account under a false name. Emily stumbled upon the evidence while volunteering in the church office, spotting discrepancies in the financial records. Instead of reporting him, she saw an opportunity to turn his betrayal to her advantage. Her journal entries shifted from anger to calculation. She believed exposing Thomas in a way that protected her father would solidify Daniel's standing as the church's unassailable leader. Emily's plan was cunning. She began forging documents that suggested Thomas was not only stealing, but plotting. To undermine Daniel's ministry, she created fake emails printed on church letterhead implying Thomas intended to start a rival congregation. She planted these in the church office, ensuring they'd be found by someone other than herself. She also tampered with financial records, making Thomas's thefts appear more blatant. Her actions were methodical, driven by a warped belief that she was fulfilling a sacred duty. Late at night, she crept into the church, her flashlight casting eerie shadows across the pews as she worked. The congregation began to murmur, suspicion falling on Thomas. Deacons questioned his leadership, and donations dipped as trust waned. Emily watched from the sidelines, her face a mask of innocence. But Thomas wasn't oblivious. Tide turning against him, and began digging into the accusations. Unaware of the true orchestrator behind his downfall, the simmering conflict reached its breaking point on a stormy November night. Thunder rolled over Willow Creek as the church stood dark and empty, or so it seemed. Thomas's body was discovered the next morning in the church basement, a single stab wound piercing his chest. Blood pooled beneath him, the scene stark against the cold concrete floor. The town was thrown into chaos. Grace Covenant, once a sanctuary, became a crime scene. Police swarmed the church, their flashlights cutting through the gloom as they collected evidence. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife from the church's fellowship hall, bore Daniel Harper's fingerprints. The pastor was brought in for questioning, his face ashen as Heinz insisted. He'd been home all night. Margaret, frantic, couldn't confirm his alibi. She'd been at the community center until late. The congregation was torn, some defending Daniel's character, others whispering about his rumored marital strife. Emily, meanwhile, remained eerily composed. She attended Thomas's memorial service, her eyes dry as others wept. Her journal, now hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her bedroom, held the chilling truth. She had lured Thomas to the church that night, sending him an anonymous note claiming to have proof of his innocence. When he arrived, she confronted him with the forged documents, accusing him of betraying her father. Thomas, enraged, threatened to expose her tampering. In a moment of blind rage, Emily grabbed the knife from a nearby counter and struck him. The act was swift, almost mechanical, her mind clouded by the belief that she was protecting Daniel's divine legacy. The knife impressed it into her father's hand while he slept, ensuring his fingerprints marked the weapon. Her plan was diabolical. Frame Daniel, believing his arrest would martyr him, elevating him to a saint-like figure persecuted for his faith. The twist shocked investigators when the truth began to unravel. Daniel's trial gripped Willow Creek. The prosecution painted him as a man driven by jealousy, claiming he killed Thomas to protect his authority. The defense argued his innocence, pointing to his spotless reputation. Emily sat in the courtroom daily, her expression unreadable, but cracks in her facade emerged. A church volunteer, cleaning the Harper home during the trial, discovered the journal beneath the floorboard. Its pages laid bare Emily's obsession, her surveillance of Thomas, and her meticulous plan to frame her father. The volunteer, horrified, turned it over to the police. Investigators combed through the journal, its entries a roadmap to Emily's descent into madness. They found traces of Thomas's blood on her shoes, hidden in her closet, and matched her handwriting to the anonymous note that lured him to his death. In a stunning courtroom revelation, Emily confessed. She stood before the judge, her voice steady, describing her actions as a sacred mission to protect her father's legacy. Believed Thomas's betrayal threatened Daniel's divine purpose, and her father's arrest would immortalize him as a martyr. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Daniel, seated nearby, buried his face in his hands, his faith shattered by his daughter's actions. Margaret, sobbing, left the courtroom, unable to face the truth. The town grappled with the betrayal of a girl they'd once seen as pure. Emily was sentenced to life without parole, her journal now a chilling artifact of a mind consumed by devotion. Daniel resigned from the ministry, moving away from Willow Creek to escape the memories. Grace Covenant closed its doors, its legacy tainted. The town remained haunted, forever changed by the question, how far can love go before it becomes a sin?